Hi everyone, it's Cathy Zielske. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I've got a simple card featuring some gorgeous images from Neat and Tangled combined with some Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. I'm pretty new still with the Zigs, but that doesn't stop me from trying. Thank you. So here's the Neat and Tangled Friendly Floral Set. Super cute images to color. I've got some Tim Holtz watercolor cardstock, my Versafine, my heat tool, my Misti, that is the mini Misti, and the three colors that I am using today of the Zig are the mid green, I've also got the light Carmine, and the Carmine red. So just three colors. Also going to be using a water brush, and I've got some clear embossing powder that I will also be using today, and a little bit of this purple tape from Thermoweb. To get started, I need to stamp out my images. Now, I am going to use the nubby side of Tim's beautiful white watercolor cardstock. Sometimes I use the smooth side, but I just wanted to have more of that watercolor paper feel. And I'm going to use my static removal magic powder bag just to get the static off because I am using some embossing powder. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp with Versafine because I'm going to emboss over the Versafine with clear. Now, in order to get a good impression on the watercolor paper, I find you have to stamp more than once, because if you see that right there, I didn't quite get it. And that is the beauty of the Misti, right? Because it lets you go right back down over where you were. And of course, using your sleeve in this manner also facilitates a positive stamping process. And once I got some images down, I went ahead and added my powder while the ink is still a little bit wet. And the reason I'm doing this is that I have better luck watercoloring when I have some sort of a border to contain my ink. And when you emboss the clear over this stamped image, it gives you that slight raised, just like if you were using white embossing powder, but here it's clear, and it's going to help me to stay in the lines. And people, I'm not that artsy. I like to stay within the lines when I'm painting. So I went ahead after I heat set this with my tool, and it got all nice and shiny, and I stamped a few more images because one of my leaves didn't look good. Now I'm going to speed this up and talk a little bit about these pens. Now, this is really only probably the fourth time I've done a project with these pens. And I keep saying I'm going to branch out and use tons of colors, but the crazy thing is you can do so much with just a few colors. Now here on this greenery, these little sprigs, I'm not doing anything other than straight up coloring, but on these wider leaves, I am doing the drop a little color and then pull that out with water to create that pretty gradient. And I'm going to do the same thing on the leaves. And I am only using one green because I feel like you get such nice variation with one color. And again, having the little raised black edge, it just makes it easier for me to color. I stay within the lines because, you know, the water moves on the paper, and I had tried a version of this without embossing, and the water just was spreading out of the image, and I thought, what am I doing wrong? I thought I knew how to watercolor. Ergo, those black lines are really helping this new watercolor painter to create something that really does look pretty nice in the end. So I'm just laying down that light Carmine. And here's the other thing too, you don't even need a second color. Honestly, if I had just used the same color in the center of the flower, I could have pulled that out and created plenty of interest. I'm just trying to push myself to use more colors because I bought a box of 48 and I think I've used 4. Just telling you, you don't need to break the bank to dabble with these markers. If you pick a couple colors that you really love, I think you'll be surprised at how much you can get with just a few. So I went back in with that Carmine red into these little flowers, and I think it looks really pretty there. You can really see that pink being pulled out from the darker area. And again, on the berries too, I just kind of colored them in. I didn't want to do anything overly fancy. Just went ahead, and there's that second flower at the bottom, coloring in the berries. And the other thing with these markers that's really cool, they have such a precise tip. It just comes to this little point, and it's actually a brush. Like, it's not a pen, it is a brush tip with bristles, and it just makes it so easy to get into all those spaces. Now I'm going to cut these out with my coordinating dies, and I've got this purple tape from Thermoweb, and I have to say, I really like it. It does not tear your paper. I actually had a tearing incident happen during this video, but it was using some micro pour tape, and that also usually doesn't happen to me, so purple tape, good. Now I have cut a panel of white cardstock, and I am going to use my Misti Creative Corner to help me line up the sentiment from this set. And I cut that panel out with a Lawn Fawn dotted rectangle because I plan to have 2 rectangles on my card panel. But those the creative corners, they kind of take the guesswork out of lining things up, which is pretty cool. And again, stamped in the Versafine, and then hit it with that clear powder because I want to also have that shiny black matching sentiment that will look really good with what I have done on my images. Now I'm going to add a little bit of fun foam for some dimension, and I like to use this scrapbook adhesives, but not directly on the foam. I like to lay the adhesive down, this stuff is super sticky, right on to the cardstock itself. For some reason it has a hard time catching on the foam, but it works fantastic for holding the foam in place. See that? All right. That is looking good. And here's the next panel. This I cut using the larger dotted frame die from Lawn Fawn. And I'm going to layer those all together in just a second. Now I'm going to score a A2 card. It's going to be top folding, so it's 5.5 by 4 1/4. Using my Score Buddy and my much loved Teflon bone folder. Get a nice crease in there. And now I am ready to begin assembling the card. Now I've added some adhesive to that larger panel, and I use my Misti to align things quickly. Isn't that great? I'm terrible at lining things up, so I just take the foam pad out, line things up, and now I'm adhering the sentiment panel directly onto the card base. I've added a little bit of foam adhesive, little foam squares here, to the main image because I want this to pop up off the panel, and I want it to hang off a little bit on the left and right. I think that looks really good. And now it's just a matter of laying in my greenery. So I've got to cut a little here and there just because those sprigs are a little too long. And it's really just a matter of playing. I did kind of map this out before I started. Believe me, I am I'm not what you'd call an expert at the floral layering. But I definitely know that if you take your main image and pop it up, then you have areas that you can just tuck in all of the other little elements. And there's so many cute little elements in this set. I really like these sprigs. I thought it turned out really cute. Now, once you put the adhesive, I actually use that pick-me-up tool. I use it for so many things, not only just to pick up the little elements that are hard to grab with your fingers that seem to have absolutely no stickiness at all, but you can also reach the plastic flat side in to just really press down the adhesive. Because I didn't cover these completely with dot adhesive, I just put enough on so that when I tuck it under, that is going to stay in place, and yeah, it works for me. So this little piece here, just kind of had to play around with the placement of that. I didn't want it to hang off too far because I always wonder, you know, when you stick something like this in a card and you have things hanging off an elevated panel, I always worry about them bending a little, so I wanted to make sure that was tucked in there nicely. And again, just pressing that down with the flat end of my tool. And then the last piece of greenery is just going to fill in that little bit of white space, snip a little more off, add my adhesive, and my floral arrangement is just about done. And I thought about putting a little bling on the card, but I really like just the simplicity of this with all its white and that little pop of color with the florals at the bottom and that nice title. And that is officially finished. Thanks so much for watching my video today. If you like what you saw, please subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you back here for another card or scrapbooking video soon.